Okay, so ecological systems are governed by the biological and the physical principles. So we have our law of the conservation of matter, saying matter cannot be created or destroyed, it can only change form. So you can take carbon and change it into a diamond, right? You can take carbs and starches that you eat and turn those into glucose, and then break them apart into pyruvate, all that good stuff. You want to go through the Krebs cycle, right? Where you're just changing this matter, and as you're changing it, you're able to either remove energy or add energy in to just change the matter, right? You also have the law of conservation of energy. Same thing. You cannot make or break energy. You can only change its form. It's the first law of thermodynamics. So, if any time you hear somebody's like, and then the energy is made, it's not. It's only transformed. So even in the sun, right, where all the energy that Earth gets originates from the sun is still taking what it has, two little protons, and breaking them apart and harnessing that energy. So the fission of the sun, where you're removing heliums and making hydrogens, like, still under the same laws. And then that energy gets here in the form of heat and light. And then plants take that energy and transform it into chemical, right? So, knowing these laws will help us predict what's going to happen or what could happen. Like looking at this girl with the baseball bat, what do you think's going to happen when she swings this light bat against that heavy basketball? You can come up with your own ideas. And then, using these two laws, we're able to imply that we can track the movement of matter. So, as it is flowing through, you can pick one atom and trace it, hypothetically, right? And you can do that through the organisms. It's been done in a lot of nutritional studies. If people want to see like where amino acids go, how they get used and broke down, you can label those amino acids with a radioisotope and actually track that amino acid and see how it moves through that individual. You can also do it for the larger populations, communities, ecosystems, even the biosphere, tracking this stuff through. So, odds are that the water has been on Earth for billions of years. Dinosaurs were on the Earth for millions of years. Probably every glass of water you have drank was once dinosaur pee. Hypothetically. When we talk about these systems, we say that they're in a dynamic steady state as if there's an equilibrium. So if everything is nice and balanced, that is the dynamic steady state. You say dynamic because it is changing, right? So you're getting gains and losses in that system, but they're equal. And so you don't have one shifting up and down. An example is body heat. As you're sitting in your house or wherever you are, you're radiating body heat. You're giving it off. But at the same time, you're also producing body heat via your metabolism. If your body heat drops too low, if you're losing more heat than you're making, then you can become hypothermic, right? Or, if you're not losing heat fast enough and you're making too much of it, you can become hyperthermic and have heat strokes. And so, that dynamic steady state is when we're saying they are in equilibrium. So, how do we measure this stuff in our little hierarchies? So if we're looking at input, outputs at the individual level, it's normally looking at how food is then processed and given off as waste. For the population level, it's births, immigrations, how those increase the population, and then how deaths and immigration decrease that population. And then for communities, kind of the same things, except the addition of new species and the loss of old species. It doesn't have to be extinction, it can be extirpation or whatever. These are like just examples. And then for the ecosystem, you can look at how solar energy and matter enter that ecosystem and then how they leave. And then same kind of thing with the biosphere, how solar energy enters and then gets re-radiated back into space. Very cool. Moving on from this thought of how we study ecology, what laws it's based on, another one is evolution, this thought of change over time. So matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed, but what we do with it is important. How we change matter and energy. And that gives us the diversity of life. So how each organism or individual tries to thrive in this area where you can't create or destroy anything. Theodosis Dobzhansky has a really cool quote where he says, "Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution," saying, without using evolution as an anchor, we really can't understand anything. It all goes back to evolution. And what evolution is, it's just genetic change in a population over time. So here we can see the evolution of whales from a small little mammal up to your whales. Very cool. Probably the most best known practice of evolution or process of evolution is natural selection, right? Evolution by natural selection as outlined by Darwin and Wallace. Here are the finches where they have different beaks to eat different seeds. And with evolution by natural selection, this is where you get a change in the genes of the population through differential survival. So, having a thicker, heavier beak means you can eat more seeds that are thicker and heavier. That allows you to reproduce better, allows your offsprings to survive better, and then they can pass on those phenotypes as they go down. The way it works is you have to have a phenotype. You have to have some sort of attribute. It can be behavior, morphology, physiology. There's some trait, right? That is influenced by the genotype. It's influenced by that genetic makeup, but it's also could be influenced by the environment. So you get genes-environment interactions. An example for this is height. So your height is determined by your genes, but also the foods you eat. And so here we can see people in the Netherlands are a lot taller than people in the Philippines. And this is based, one, on the genetics, but is also based on the nutrition. Something that we have seen in overseas adoptions is like children in Korea, people in Korea tend to be pretty short. But if they're adopted and brought over into the United States and eat that nutrition, they can be taller than your average Korean just based on how that nutrition changed their growth. The genes are still the same. It's the nutrition. Alright, so your individual organisms, they have differences in their traits. There's variation, which is based on the parental traits. So these traits get inherited. So you have to have variation. They have to get inherited. And then there has to be selection. There has to be something about these traits that make them better or worse. You're going to have differential survival. You're going to have a different fitness. So fitness is survival and the reproduction of the individual. If you have an individual who survives for 1,000 years but doesn't reproduce, what's its fitness? Well, its fitness is 0 because it did not make any babies. There was no reproduction. If you don't pass it on, it didn't even happen. Didn't even exist, right? Doesn't matter. Now you can flip that and say, what if something lives for like 1 day and makes 1,000 babies? Which one's more fit? Well, since this one has a 0, this one. Now, it depends on how long those babies live, if they can make it to adulthood and reproduce and all of that. So fitness is really a hard number to track, and we normally just take little snapshots of it, kind of like, this individual fathered 3 babies, and you stop there. Instead of tracking those babies through their life and tracking how many offspring they made. I mean, you can, but those are really long, drawn-out experiments. It'd be really tough to follow, I think, in a natural case anyways. Alright, so, how do ecological systems, how are they governed by physical and biological laws? Remember, conservation of matter, conservation of energy. What does it mean if something's in a dynamic, steady state? Reach that balance, right? And then the 3 conditions required for evolution by natural selection is you gotta have genetic variation. How do you get that variation? That comes through mutations, mostly. Or wholly. Then you have to have inheritance of that variation. And then differential survival. You have to have something selecting on those individuals. And we will pause here and pick up with different biological roles.